Hello, this is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and today we'll be talking about the Florida GovCon Summit. So we've had the podcast since about July of 2016, and the Florida GovCon Summit is our annual signature event where we bring together invited partners and clients and bring together all the people that need to be collaborating in this federal market. If you're doing business in Florida, might be that you're not headquartered here, but you're down here all the time. We'd love to have you come and connect. So it'll be in Tampa at the Doubletree West Shore, which is near the airport, and the dates on that are going to be Wednesday and Thursday, March 29th and 30th, 2017. So what's our vision for the Florida GovCon Summit? Well, it's really to be raising the voices of Florida's federal communities. We want to help small businesses win more federal contracts, and we're teaming for the bigger federal deals. So the lineup of speakers is varied, and we're going to make it very interactive and very open. The idea that I keep suggesting is we're going to have speakers up on bar stools talking about a little bit about what their expertise is, what their interests are, so that people will know who they want to speak to. And rather than rushing a stage at the end of a long 45-minute presentation, we're actually going to have those speakers, in many cases, break out into groups right away, so that you're sitting around, almost like sitting around having a conversation around a kitchen table. Now, there could be a lot of people at dinner that night, but nonetheless, the whole idea is we want to create an interactive environment where you can hear from the subject matter experts on what they feel like are some recommended directions, what type of research you should do, who else might be involved in it. But we also want you to look around at the table and see who else might be taking a look at that. We want to be thinking about, yes, there could be competitors in the room. The next stage after competition is co-opetition, where there's a little bit more cooperation, not quite a competitor, but not quite cooperative yet either. The next stage might be collaboration. How do we team together? How do we work? Next one could be cooperation, where we not only are working together, but we're helping each other out actively. And maybe toward that, you move toward consensus, where we as a team have developed towards a goal and we're able to move forward. Among the topics that we've got we're including a panel of small business agency representatives from the various agencies across Florida to talk about what might be available to you as a small business. When I asked some of the small business representatives what would be most useful for you, they say, hey, we get a lot of people come in that are in startup stage. We're very happy to help them. We can tell them what they need to know to get started and get them down the path, and we'll give them a list of here's the prime contractors you need to be talking to that are already working with us. Start developing those relationships. Well, that's great. But there are some substantial small business set-aside or small business restricted competitions that are coming up, and they need to have qualified small businesses that are ready to prime. In order for something to be set aside for small business, there have to be, I think, at least 2 or more qualified small businesses that might participate. These agencies send out RFIs, requests for information, to identify, do we have enough people during their market research phase in order to set this aside for small business. So even though it takes some time, you need to take a look at as many of these RFIs as you can and put something in, because you're relying on yourself and other members of your small business community to submit and say, yes, there are a few of us that could do something with this. Please consider setting it aside for small business. So we've got a shot at a bigger chunk of work that we're now ready to manage. So I mentioned the word earlier, second stage small business. That means that the small businesses have been established. They pretty much got their payroll and their billing and their employee handbook and their security clearances, and they've got basic infrastructure. They've developed team and relationships. They're a subcontractor on a number of activities. They're building past performance. They may have a GSA schedule. They may be on Seaport E. They might have gone on other IDIQs that they're team members on. They've actively done proposals. They have a proposal process. They've actively submitted proposals to teams and they have the basics down of what it takes to be a federal contractor. They also have basic access to a line of credit or other financing, and they're really ready to go. Now, what it took to get you to that stage is not what it's going to take to get to the next level. What it will take to get to the next level is an understanding of what these small business representatives from the various agencies are looking for, what type of opportunities are available. You've got to have established teammates so that you can reach out and say, I'm looking at this. You don't want to try to build a team when the RFP is about to come out. You need to have a longer view forward of what is going to be coming out and when, because obviously by the time you see it in FedBizOps, it's way too late for you to be bidding on that. You need to be targeting it about 18 months out. And for that matter, you need to be looking at the agencies that you might work with that are buying the type of services that you perform, developing those relationships, getting involved in their industry briefings, knowing when those are going to be coming ahead, so you develop a relationship and you feel like you see some opportunities that you could carve out and possibly take to another teammate or even a larger company where you want to become a small business prime. In addition to the small business representatives, by the way, we are going to have a panel of primes, experienced large prime contractors that want to work with small businesses, but they want those small businesses to come prepared. The same kind of preparation that was required to do business as a small business with the agencies directly as a prime, that needs to be part of your capabilities that you bring forward in talking to the prime contractors. The panel of primes will be talking about what expectations do we have, what expectations do we have of each other in a relationship if we wanted to work together. The other advice that I've heard in talking to people that are small businesses that have successfully primed is that they had to go to the agencies, identify the work, identify the budget, figure out when it was going to start and stop. Is it a new requirement or is it a recompete situation? What is your relationship? How do you develop the relationship? And then at that point, you're ready to go back to a prime and say, we're now as a small business ready to lead a prime team. Here's some opportunities that we've identified. We'd like to talk about teaming up. And you could have tried that relationship differently earlier on, and you should be, where you've identified that opportunity and gone to the prime and say, we would like to be a sub if you could prime this. It's all about creating relationships to go after these opportunities, because teaming is how you're going to grow. The small business agent representatives that we're going to have are from NASA, Kennedy Space Center, PEO STRI, Army is going to be there. NOC TSD, which is Navy, will be there from Orlando, and also Special Operations Command. The panel of primes, we are working to identify primes that want to participate, and we're looking at it to be a good mix of large organizations that are actively trying to build and grow their small business programs. Another priority for this Florida GovCon Summit is we want to close the gaps between subs and primes, and we want to do that by educating small businesses to better prepare them for the work with their prime contractors. To do that, we've created half a dozen educational panels with experts in the field that can help and answer questions and let you know what you need to be expecting, what you need to be working on. First of all is pipeline management. How do you decide what you're going to develop? What's your business development process? What's your capture process? How do you track these opportunities? How do you track the opportunities and follow them through all the way to contract award, maybe to protest, and maybe to award again? Under pricing and compliance, we've got some experts that, including Wayne Leland of Perspective, former DCAA auditor, that will be able to describe some of the things that you need to know as you're going into a pricing situation or you're dealing with some accounting issues on what you need to do to resolve those. And then Jenny Clark is going to talk about her rate and pricing model, RPM, which is a rate model for your indirect expenses that you can use to say where you are today, where you think you'll be by the end of the year. And also you can use the same model for forecasting, because there are ways that I show you the methodology so you can add to that spreadsheet and create some what-if scenarios. What if we added 10 people? How would that affect our rates? But I show you how to do that as part of the process. Another key area that every small business in federal contracting has to spend a lot of time on is recruitment. In order to bid these contracts, you've got to have a pretty hefty group of resumes, and you've got to have a good way to maintain your resume database. So those resumes can be pulled when it's time to include them on a proposal. And you've got to have a good process to reach back out to the people, find out if they're still available, and if the job is won and then awarded, how do you reach out to them to see if they're interested in coming on board and joining the team? So recruitment's a big issue, and we want to talk about some of the ways that people are using LinkedIn and other resources for recruitment, as well as what they're doing with clearance jobs and some of the other job sites. We also want to talk about engagement. It's one thing to find and hire those people. It's another thing to make sure that we are adequately bringing them into our corporate culture, explaining what we are all about, and making them feel like they're a part of the company that shares the mission, that understands what we do, so that they are likely to identify with us and stay with us. And that's all about employee engagement. And we're going to have several people speaking, including Marnice Miller, who specializes, has some information about setting up mentoring programs, because that is the direction everything's going, where we want to create more relationships without having formal chain of command, supervisor type relationships. We have a panel on HR topics, and the reason we're bringing that together is there are so many questions as the company starts to move past the 50 employee mark about what they can do for their 401k plans. They're also asking things about what's going to happen to our benefit plans. When you price the health insurance in 2014 for the jobs that you're working now, you had a different set of information than we do today. Now, we're really not sure what's going to happen with the Affordable Care Act, but the belief is that our insurance costs, our health insurance, are going to go up. We want to talk about that, and we want to talk about what other companies are using as strategies to either control that cost, or how they're going to bid it, or what they're going to do, because this is going to be an ongoing, continuous problem. We want to know what other people are doing. We also want to look at the entire benefit package concept. Many companies now are setting up separate pools of benefits for different groups of employees, and we really want to talk about how you, as part of your company strategy, need to be thinking ahead. And in my head, it's as simple as knowing what state you're going to be operating in, what type of employees. Are you going to have IT analysts, which are fairly highly compensated and maybe a kind of a low benefits package as a percentage, or are you going to have union employees, or would you have Service Contract Act employees? All of this is going to affect your pricing and how you work with those employees, and how your benefit package needs to be structured. We're going to also have Cheryl Hunter, the entrepreneur's lawyer, talk about some of the issues that she's encountered in working with federal contractors. And some of it is things that are outside the HR area, like data rights, but others of it have to do with, what are you doing to protect your employees? What are you doing to protect your company? Do you have your employees correctly classified? What are the issues you need to be aware of as you go forward in federal contracting? We've also got several fascinating panels about what are the next steps in growth. There's one about joint ventures and mentor-protege program, and that's going to be talking about the latest changes in the National Defense Authorization Act and some other regulatory changes that make it even more attractive to do joint ventures in the future. And because they've taken these actions, you can expect that to be a competitive advantage that you're going to have to develop if you don't already have joint ventures. And you need to know what to do and how to put it together. And we've got Todd Overman from coming down as the attorney to talk to us. We've also got Republic Capital Access, Matt Stavish will be there, and a number of other speakers. Because we knew we'd be talking about joint ventures, we felt like we should also be talking about the planning of the other side, which is exit strategy. Now, it could be that your exit strategy is when you get to a certain point where you're ready to quit working, you're just going to quit working and let the company crumble. Or you may want to do an ESOP, employee stock ownership program. Or you might have an idea that you're going to sell it to a large business or merge it into another small business. These are all things that you need to be thinking about as your company is growing, because there might be an opportunity that you want to do something different, and you need to know a little bit about what your options are. So if you change your mind and you want to pivot or zigzag, you've got ways to do that. So there'll be a exit strategies panel talking about what your opportunities are and how that works. And by the way, we've got a special guest coming down for that, John Leitch of WinQuest Engineering, who's a cyber expert, is going to talk a lot about due diligence, which is becoming a big issue in the merger and acquisition. It's becoming part of the evaluation of your company. Now, valuation is a very tricky thing. There are only certain people that specialize in valuation. It's quite subjective, and we want to really emphasize the things that you need to be considering. So you're building the value into your company to make it so you get the most out of it if you choose to exit at some point in the future. Everybody has an exit strategy. Some is just better defined than others. So we'll also be talking about growth trends. In last year's summit, we talked a little bit about robotics. We talked about unmanned systems. We talked about open source software. We talked about the SoftWorks and OpenWorks programs. Well, this year we've got the same kind of concept behind this with a little more maturity. We're also going to be including topics of machine intelligence. John Morrow is the expert in that, and he'll be describing it. He's got a lot of posts out on Facebook that I follow, and has been very informative of that, but he really just believes that machine intelligence is the next big thing, and we really should be getting into that trend. And of course, if it's growing in the commercial space, there will also be a demand for it in the federal space. We've got augmented reality and virtual reality. I've invited Sean Carey and Kevin Hull of HD Interactive. I've recently worked with them on a project where we did some training simulations, and they used a 360-degree camera. It was fascinating to watch it set up. It was fascinating to be in that recording, and they're going to be talking about some of the technologies they're doing and what some ways other people are incorporating that into other projects, including some of which are federal. We're going to have Michael Ferris with Occam Technology Group talk about sensors. There's such a growing demand for sensors, and if you just think about how many sensors are in your phone, in my new thermostat, in this Alexa app or thing that I have where I want to play music, it's all out there. There's going to be so many more sensors. That's the big growth area. And so Michael's going to share some of his thoughts about that. There's a cybersecurity element that goes with it, and he may also add some insight on that. In talking about sensors, there's a big initiative called ICOMERS, International Consortium for Advanced Manufacturing Research. It's an Osceola. And they renamed it. I don't know what the BRIDG exactly stands for, but basically it's a collaborative facility where people that are trying to test manufacturing can come to that facility and do it instead of having to create their own small pilot or test manufacturing areas to see what the best processes are. So we're going to be looking forward to having Dr. Gloria Weens talk about that. She's the director of Florida Makes, and she's going to be able to share with us what's going on across the community in this area. We've also got somebody coming to talk about space, and that is Tim Pickens with Pickens Innovation. Tim's been in aerospace his entire career, and he's got some great stories to share about what's going on and what he sees for the future. Thinking about the cycles that we've gone through for space program, from the Apollo program, the Space Shuttle program, Space Station, and now we're actually seeing privatization and commercialization of space. And in talking to him, he said, well, yeah, we're building some test stands out here. I'm looking for a nose cone that I can put on for this company. And he's one of those hardware guys that can connect the parts, and he knows where they are, and he finds different ways to pull all this together and make everything work. So he's very much an innovator and someone that builds it. So the next area that we're going to be talking about is software. Jeff Young was with Marjal Systems, was on our panel last year talking about open source software. He'll be also including this year an update on what else is going on, what some of the trends are, and how you might get involved. And then we're also welcoming back John Lambert, who's an expert in unmanned systems with Nexutech, and he's been on the board of AUVSI for many years, and he's got great insights on what's going on with unmanned systems, whether it's robotics, the unmanned drones, whatever submarine technology, all of those, where that's going. We've got 2 keynotes because this is a 2-day conference. We're going to have Sid Fuchs, who's the CEO of Macaulay Brown, which is obviously a Washington 100 top technology firm, about $150 million in sales. He's written a book called Get Off the Bench, and it really talks about what he did to network and how it's helped him become successful, and how you can apply those same principles in order to really grow your business and create a team of people that trust you and that you have ways to move forward. We'll also be welcoming Jeff Pearsall, who's the CEO of I4 Business Magazine and Space Coast Technology Magazine. Plus, he's also the publisher of Florida Trep, which is about entrepreneurial activities. Jeff's just recently written a book called Dogs Don't Bark at Parked Cars, and he talks all about staying in motion. He also describes the different ways that creating partnerships and relationships and trust communities has really been the key to the success that they've had in Orlando, most of which is coming out of the University of Central Florida's incubation program and collaboration with industry. And he's got some very meaningful insights to share with us about what we can do, how we might apply those same concepts in our own community. I've also added something called Cyber 360, and it's really just the concept that cybersecurity issue is embedded in absolutely everything we do. None of those areas that I talked about earlier can correctly move forward without taking a very close look at cybersecurity and controls and protection and what needs to happen. Everything we have today is interconnected, but in order to collaborate, we must have ways to trust, and we have to have ways to verify that trust. And as we know, the weakest link is the one that can break us all. As we talk about stories of cyber hacking and all the things that could happen, it's like, are you making sure that the people that you're teaming up with are following the cybersecurity practices that you consider to be appropriate and required? Because if not, they're compromising you, and you need to be very sure that that's what's going on. Whenever I've heard about small businesses that have gone through a cyber incident, it's one time and you're over. There's no going back. There's no rebuilding. Everything you have is compromised. Every relationship with every customer, every employee, and every government agency has been compromised, and there is no recovery from that. So it's a very dangerous area, and we need to be really thinking about it. For Cyber 360, I've got an expert panel that includes Jeremy Rasmussen of Abacode, very active at USF and the White Hatters group that he started out there. Lisa Chastain, who's a cyber attorney, is going to tell you the first thing you need to do if you have a cyber incident is call an attorney so that the information is under attorney-client privilege. I've also invited Jonathan Hard, who specializes in the DFAR compliance. He understands what the rules are, and he's worked with companies to make sure that they understood how to implement those rules and how to prove that they are compliant. I've got Michael Lipscomb of Lorica talking about FISMA and HIPAA, and that's the financial security areas issues that are going to be affecting us all. There are also state regulations that you might not even know about that are affecting your own company right now. We're also looking forward to hearing from Angel Rojas. By the way, he has written a book about what a small business needs for cybersecurity, and is a great resource for making sure that you have your internal networks secure and protected. And he has some great ideas for the practices that you need to do and the services that can be done to make sure that everything is working, but his company's DataCore. We're planning to have some collaborative sessions. They call them strategic alliances, where you get to meet everybody, and that's more like a speed networking type event. But during the session, we're expecting to have collaborative sessions to ask a few questions of the group about what's holding us back. I was recently at something called the Tampa Bay Innovation Summit, and we had a list of questions, and we were broken up into groups for investors, entrepreneurs, service providers, educational institutions, economic development agencies, and government, and there may have been one or two other groups, where we broke off into small groups and we were to address a list of questions saying what's holding us back. The overall premise that we started out with was based on a University of Tampa study that was funded by the Kauffman Foundation, where Dr. Rebecca White and a number of others came up with a white paper discussing this topic. It's the same thing we've always heard about the Tampa Bay area. Well, there's no urban core, there's a lot of fragmentation, there's not much collaboration, nobody wants to cross a bridge, and I think the last part of it was talking about different cities that we might want to aspire to be like. Maybe it's Austin, maybe it's Charlotte, maybe it's Nashville. It was even mentioned that it could be San Diego. And I've always called Tampa the poor man's San Diego, because we've got that beautiful bay, we've got a lot of different communities, a lot of ways that you can get around and participate. The premise was that San Diego benefits from the overflow from Silicon Valley, which doesn't quite make sense because there's over 400 miles away between Silicon Valley and San Diego. And so if you scratch your head and say, well, what do we have that could help us with that? Well, we're only 90 miles from Orlando, and Orlando's University of Central Florida has created a great collaborative environment over there. Maybe we need to find out what we could do to create something similar to that. Maybe we need to collaborate with people that are in Orlando. And as a matter of fact, someone I was talking to today really just mentioned that, said that they'd had too much trouble trying to do business in the Tampa Bay community for that very reason, and they ended up taking the companies that they were working with and connecting them over at University of Central Florida through that program, because they just felt like there was a better future in that. So are we missing out? The question is not, is Tampa Bay missing out? The question is our entrepreneurial ecosystem missing out? Are we not taking advantages of things that we could? It's possible that there's federal funding that would contribute to our growth, or even state funding that would contribute to our growth. And if we're not finding a way to partner and collaborate, we're not getting the best use of those taxpayer dollars. So the collaborative sessions will talk about what's holding us back from growth, how could we collaborate better, could we import resources and convince them to invest and stay. For me, I'm thinking about how wonderful it is when you first come to the Tampa Bay area, and maybe you're coming for a weekend, and then later you come for a week. And then if you're like me, you come for a month, and then you finally say, I don't know why I don't live down there, I'm moving. We've got so many people that come to visit this community. Think about all the people that you know that have Virginia or Maryland or DC phone numbers. People that have come from Michigan or Wisconsin, or they started coming down here from other places because they were trying to get out of the cold, and they just did like everybody else. They said, if I could find a way to live down there, I'd move in a heartbeat. So let's find them a way to make a living in this community, so we can attract more of that. During the presentation, Dr. White showed a picture of her sailboat opportunity and said when she was thinking about moving down here with her husband from Cincinnati to take the job as the entrepreneurial head at University of Tampa, that was really the selling point, is we could have our boat and we could actually have time to go out on the boat. That's really the attraction of this community. Everybody talks about how open Tampa Bay is, how much fun it is, and we have these great little communities. People will say, well, we don't have an urban core. We don't need one. We do need to figure out a way to get around better. I don't know if we put a barge out in the middle of Tampa Bay and find a way to have ferries take cars out there to it, or maybe we have containers sitting next to food trucks and we move them around, but there's got to be a solution of how we can really foster the entrepreneurial environment we've got. And let's do something different. Let's don't try to be like another community. We aren't like another community, and we've got plenty going on here. So we also need to look at where the funding sources are for growth. Do we have the leadership, and how do we support innovation? If we want to bring companies here that stay here and grow here, that's going to be our important, that's how we're going to grow. So thanks so much for listening to the Florida GovCon podcast. As I mentioned, our event is the Florida GovCon Summit. It's March 29th and 30th in Tampa, the Doubletree West Shore. You can go to our website to find out more about it. We are looking for sponsors, have most of the speakers worked out, and pretty soon we'll be opening registration for you to sign up. So we look forward to meeting you, and thanks so much for listening.